Welcome to this episode of Diligent Institutes Inside Today's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, and I'll be your host for today's show. Today, we're going to be talking about key lessons on being a more effective corporate director. And joining me is Sara Lewis, who is a board member with Weyerhaeuser, Freeport McMoran, and Health Peak Properties. Welcome back to the show, Sara.
Thank you, TK. Thanks for having me back again.
Just so that everybody knows, I have always said that I thought that you were a great role model, not just for women directors, but also for anybody that wants to sort of understand how to prepare and how to be an effective director. So I thought this was a great opportunity. And like my start at a young age, you started as a corporate director at 36 years old and now have sat on 8 public company boards and has served as a public company director for 19 years. So whenever we have a chance to meet, you always have shared lessons you've learned in serving in the boardroom. So I thought it might be a good idea if you were able to sort of share those personal lessons that you learned for sort of new or less seasoned directors so that they can sort of have a shortcut path to being more effective. So knowing that you have the opportunity to share with this larger audience, what is the best advice or guidance that you might pass along from your experiences?
So you reminded me before we started that everyone watching is currently a board member. So you've already accomplished actually one of the most important aspects of board effectiveness, which is choosing the right management team, one that you respect and has the right tone at the top, a team that you can support 90 to 95% of the time. And then your fellow board members are colleagues you're willing to be in the trenches with on the most difficult issues, whether it's M&A, CEO succession, perhaps underperformance by the team, or even responding to a crisis. And you also knew how to add value going in. We all know that there are very few seats around the table, and everyone must bring their absolute best game to help the company succeed. So I really have 3 pieces of advice. Early on in your board service, and then really for the rest of your board service, you need to read, and read everything that you possibly can to understand the industry and the company's strategy. Read business news, industry news, analyst reports. The big 4 accounting firms have great resources. Diligent has great resources. NACD, Tapestry, Center for Audit Quality. Take advantage of all of the numerous board education events you can that are available and stay informed. Then also think about risks. I mean, obviously, we've had a lot of risks impact all of our businesses in the last few years, but think about how they evolve and correlate with each other. I find often that enterprise risk management analyses consider risks individually, when in reality, they often aggregate. So are we prepared if several individual risks happen at the same time? Then think strategically about the opportunity presented by risk. What are our strengths and how can we manage the associated risks better than others? This will help you ensure that you are focused on the big issues, serving your clients, developing your team, and creating value for shareholders. As you all know, there are times we get bogged down in compliance and governance issues and all the things that have to be done at the board level. But it's important to never miss the most important job, which is creating value.
I want to add to that just a little bit, a nuance, and that is, when people go on the board, some companies inform them that they have a education budget, and that they are welcome to take advantage to continue to, build their knowledge. But a lot don't. And as a director, I don't want you to be afraid to go to the management team or the corporate secretary or the general counsel and say, I'd like to take advantage of this opportunity. I'd say in 95% of the cases, the company's going to be happy to sort of fund that education for you. And if you don't hear anything about it, just don't be shy to ask.
Absolutely. And, there are varying costs associated with it. Like there are some really expensive programs, and then just being an individual member of NACD or taking advantage of what's offered on Diligent is not expensive at all. So it doesn't have to be super expensive to be effective.
So what would be your next piece of advice?
Be sure that you understand your role as a board member. It's one of oversight and governance, and it's not an operating. I often counsel those considering board service that if they don't feel a sense of completion from their main career, that they still have something that they need to do and they still need individual recognition, they should really seek other work. Everything we do as board members is confidential and behind closed doors. Most of the time, we are offering our most wise counsel to the CEO and management team, ensuring a thoughtful yet challenging strategic plan, and providing the diligence and oversight our shareholders expect and deserve. Though every once in a while, there is a moment when we have tremendous opportunity to create impact on a company's future. It might be changing the direction of a CEO succession plan, insisting on a solid balance sheet before the crisis hits, or otherwise ensuring the sustainable financial health of the company, all unbeknownst to the rest of the world. This is true leadership in the boardroom, requiring the courage and independence that comes from the wisdom and willingness to know when to stand your ground for the benefit of the company. These are rare moments when we do some of our greatest work, and it will never be known to anyone outside of that room. We are the quiet partners, the wise counsel, who encourage the CEO and management team to go out and execute at their very best. Management gets the well-deserved spotlight when they succeed, and we all share, management and the board, in the inevitable downfalls that occur from time to time.
I don't care what situation you're in, and it's particularly important when you're coming on a board, and or if a new CEO is coming in. I think one of the most important questions somebody can ask is, what are your expectations of this role? Okay. And that is going to provide that conversation, which should be had with the CEO, the CFO, and the general counsel, just to get a sense for what their expectations are of the board. And then same is true probably for a chairman or a lead director. If you don't have a lot of experience, that's going to give you a framework from which to sort of build your own plan on how you can build value. So, Sara, I'm sure, having sat on 8 boards, that you've experienced companies that sort of charted that out for you, and those that you had to investigate yourself.
Well, yes. I mean, you sort of feel that out. You can feel that out through the interview process, and then you can also continue to feel that out once you join the board. The thing is, a board can be a tremendous source of value. When you think about all of the wisdom that you have around the table, if you're able to take advantage of that, that's a tremendous source of value. And the smart management teams will. And the more transparent they are about both the opportunities and the risks and challenges they see, the better that team around the table can really help them move the company forward. But the key is whether or not that board understands its role. And if the board tries to overstep, if they don't understand their role as one of oversight and not operating, the management team is going to pull back, and they're going to be more close to the vest, and they're not going to share with you what their true fears are. And that's when things just break down, and when you really don't get the advantage of all of that expertise and wisdom in the room. So it's really a delicate balance. And I think, it's very rare that a board stays the same. It's either sort of evolving up or it's evolving down. And the key is to try to keep it evolving, at least in place, and moving up and moving forward. But it really requires the best of everyone in that room.
What would your last little bit of advice be to those, again, less seasoned or new directors that'll help them sort of have a shortcut to effectiveness?
We all need to recognize that we're on the same team. We just have different roles to play. And we absolutely must represent, as a board member, you have to represent the shareholder well in providing oversight and challenge to management's strategy and approach. But once we've agreed on all of that, then you really need to support the CEO and management team, as we all want the company to win. One of the ways I know I'm providing value throughout the year is when management feels free to give me a call in between board meetings and ask for my advice. But the truth is, I also make sure they understand that they're under no obligation to take my advice, because if they are, they won't come back. And so knowing that management is responsible for execution and outcome, I give them the absolute best advice I can give them, and then they can decide what to do with that. So, the bottom line is, serving on a corporate board is a tremendous opportunity to create value for the company and its stakeholders, but it's also an enormous responsibility. So be the most wise, thoughtful counsel you can be.
That's great advice. And I knew beforehand, by asking you to be my guest, that you would have great wisdom to pass along. And I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today, Sara.
Well, thank you, TK. I really enjoy every opportunity I have to work with you. So thank you.
Well, thanks. And that will conclude this edition of Diligent Institute's Inside Today's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.